Creepy customer. Long-time lurker. First-time poster. Forgive me for some formatting or other errors, blah blah blah. Anyways, about a year and a half ago, I started a job at a fast food restaurant, Bojangles. Not sure if everyone has this place. I think it's a southern chain. It's Cajun style chicken and biscuits, and they have sides too, kinda like KFC or Popeyes. They also sell breakfast biscuits. For reference, I was fresh out of high school, a small, kinda timid bottle blonde, and I was presenting as female. I'm agendered. During my time working there, as you can imagine, I had a lot of intimidating older men hit on me, probably because I couldn't fight back without losing my job. I've had men invite me to sit down with them for their meal during my working hours, asking for my phone number, etc. But this was, by far, the worst experience. In the mornings, we had a ton of old men come in and all order biscuits and coffee and sit in the dining area for a few hours just talking and those sorts of things. These men came in almost every morning, and after a while I start to get to know them, what they usually order, their names, etc. They're all actually pretty cool guys. Talking to them does seem to brighten the dull hours, taking orders at the registers and wiping down tables. So one day, the usual group comes in during a kind of busy morning, and I notice someone new among them. No big deal. There's nothing that really stands out about him. He doesn't seem creepy or anything. When it gets to his turn to order, he tells me what he wants, I ring him up, and he pulls out his wallet to pay. While he's taking out his wallet, he kind of pauses, stares at me for a minute, and tells me, "You have the prettiest eyes." Okay, no big deal. I get tons of compliments about my eyes. They're really pretty, and I consider them my best feature. What shocks me is what he says next. "I want to kidnap you and keep you locked in a box and only open it when I want to look at those pretty eyes." What the hell? He kind of sounded like some kind of serial killer or kidnapper. I sort of paused for a minute, and I'm sure I had this ridiculously frightened look on my face, but he just smiled and calmly handed over the cash to pay for his meal. I nervously laughed it off, trying to get back to work and not seem to be too uncomfortable, in case he complained to the manager about bad service or something. But it stays with me to this day. I think the creepiest part was that he wasn't creepy before he said that. I didn't get bad vibes from him or anything. I'm just glad he never came back during my time there though. So creepy customer, potential serial killer from Bojangles, let's not meet again. Bondage at Burger King. So this happened yesterday, but I'm pretty sure it's the creepiest encounter with a stranger I've had in my life. I've never really written about a personal experience like this, and I don't know if y'all will find it weird, as I did, or if I'm overreacting, but I thought this would be the place to share it. Yesterday, my friend and I were at my house and found ourselves craving gross fast food. I live about a half-mile from a Burger King, which my friends and I had walked to before. It was quick, approaching dusk, but my neighborhood is relatively nice, and I never felt uncomfortable or unsafe walking anywhere nearby before. The weather had been mild around here for December, and we decided to walk instead of drive the short distance to the King. For some background information, my friend and I are both 16-year-old girls. We have both had encounters with creepers in the past, but my resting bitch face has deterred a lot of unwanted advances. My friend has a pepper spray canister in her purse, but we left it at home. I guess because we were so comfortable in my neighborhood that we didn't think anything odd would happen. When we reached the Burger King, it was oddly desolate for dinner time. The only people in the restaurant were the workers, an old Italian man who seemed to be the franchise owner, and a middle-aged African-American man sitting in the corner, facing the window. The way the building is set up, you order your food around the corner from the seating area, and those at the cash register cannot easily see those seated in the restaurant. There is a side door that opens directly onto the dining area, and you can enter and leave without whoever is working the cash register ever seeing you. As we were ordering our milkshake and fries, the owner was screaming at the young employees, which made my friend and I pretty uncomfortable. When our food was ready, he brought it to the counter and leered at us, asked us if we had just been to the beach. Neither of us were dressed particularly revealing, and I just gave him a dirty look and sat down to eat my food, thinking that he was probably the creepiest person I was going to meet that day. When my friend and I sat down to eat, the man who was seated in the corner got up to leave. We barely looked at him, but when he was passing our table, my friend and I noticed an odd detail. Though he was middle-aged and was wearing what looked to be a work uniform, he had bright, neon green contact lenses in his eyes, like the kind people wear with Halloween costumes. I giggled to my friend that he must really like Hobson, a rapper whose persona includes wearing white contact lenses. But we didn't find it too strange until he came back in the side door 3 minutes later. When he came back in, he was carrying a misshapen large bag. He was previously seated very far from us, but when he came back, he took the seat closest to us, 2 or 3 feet away. The tables were angled differently, so his back was facing us. We thought this was weird, but we continued eating while he pulled out an ancient laptop from his bag and started it up. A few moments later, my friend grabbed my leg and made a motion for me to look next to me. There, the man had clearly angled his laptop screen, so it was in the view of my friend and I. I heard his heavy breathing before I fully grasped what was happening. There, on his window media player screen, were 2 naked women in what seemed to be a dungeon, strapped down and being whipped by a 3rd woman in a rubber suit. Now, I have grown up around computers, and I am friends with lots of dirty teenage boys, so I have seen pornography before. But this didn't seem like normal bondage porn at all. It seemed less staged and less professional. And the fact that the man had it on a disc instead of the internet made it pretty creepy. What made it even creepier was that he was steadily increasing the volume on his laptop. By the time my friend and I fully grasped what was happening and got up to leave, it was on full volume and still angled towards us, while the woman's screams of pain echoed through the dingy restaurant. Of course, while this was happening, the manager was still yelling at his employees, and they were definitely unaware of what was going on. My friend and I didn't stop to tell them what was happening, and we booked it out of there, running across a busy intersection. I looked back to see the man getting up and walking out of the Burger King into what only can be described as a stereotypical black creeper van. I told my friend this, and we began to panic and ran into a nearby gas station. The van drove into the parking lot and sat there. We hid inside for almost half an hour, and the employees probably thought we were shoplifting, but we were too scared to make the walk home with this weirdo on the loose. Eventually, the van drove off, and we peeked outside to make sure the coast was clear. By this time, it was completely dark. I called my best guy friend and asked him to come pick us up, but he was across town. My friend and I stayed on the phone with him as we began to trek back to my house, which, though short, when paranoid, seemed endless. When we got home, we speculated on the man's intentions and thanked our lucky stars that he didn't grab us on our walk back. I wasn't able to sleep well last night. I just saw his blank, green eyes and his creepy van in my dreams. It really sucks not feeling safe in your own neighborhood. I think it was probably exciting for him to scare young girls, and I think maybe this was his form of exhibitionism. If anything like this has ever happened to any of you, I would love to hear about it. Or if you know it is a thing in the creeper community to force people to watch your weird porn in public. I'm just really confused by this whole experience. My friend's dad called a non-emergency police line today about this, and if anyone is interested, I can let you know what they said when I find out. Gross guy from Burger King. I just remembered this. It's one of those memories that isn't extremely terrifying enough to remember, but it's eerie enough to stay in your mind for a good while. I'd say I was about 13 years old when this happened. At the time, I lived in a small town, and this girl a few years younger than me had gone missing. It had been a big deal. They found her dead, and well, she apparently been tortured before her death. It was a huge deal. Obviously, it made parents paranoid about who they let be around their children. So back to my experience. My mom took me to Burger King. It was close to her apartment, and we went there the days she was too tired from working to cook. She went to get the food, and I sat at a booth playing with the paper from my straw, and this man came in and came up to me. It was like he came into the building and looked around until he spotted me, then came over to where I was sitting. The guy, I don't think that he was homeless, maybe he was. He had this odd smell to him, and his clothes were ripped and dirty. He kept his hands stuffed in his jean pockets and kept moving them around and swaying back and forth while standing and looking down at me. And he kept smiling, and it was so creepy. I just sort of smiled at him and said hi, and hoped he'd go away, and figured he couldn't do anything because it was a small building full of employees and my mom was just a few feet away. He started talking to me. I remember that he had that kind of voice that makes you feel gross. He just fucking stared at me and was talking about the girl who went missing and found dead. It wasn't like a casual topic. He had this glint in his eyes that it was exciting to him what had happened, and was exciting for him to be talking about it to a young girl. He started on about how he heard what happened to the girl was all about sex, which when you're very young and some creepy man who hasn't bathed in probably weeks is saying things about sex to you, and the way he said sex was so intense was just freaky. Like the whole situation is fucked, and I was creeped out and this guy is standing very close to me, like blocking my side of the booth. It was like he knew that if he didn't stand nearly pressed to my side, that I would get up and leave this charming conversation. Thankfully, before he could tell me any more about sex, or at this point, ask me if I had sex before, which is where he was starting to go with it, my mom noticed him and came over, asking him what the hell he wanted and why he was talking to me. He got wide-eyed, jumped up and left. A few employees ran out after him to see who he was, what he looked like, because they were caught between wanting to call the cops and make sure to never let him into the building again. I remember being shaken up really badly. My mom was freaked out. She had plans on buying me mace and all sorts of things after that incident. The thing is, after that, I was paranoid I'd run into him again. Small town, that shit happens. Like a few times, I swear, I saw him riding a bike when I'd be in the car with my mom. And another time, I think I saw him in a shop that we were in. Of course, I was young, he was gross, and I was paranoid, so I doubt I did really see him. Anyways, gross guy from Burger King, let's not meet.